Hello, everyone. I am Nanette Kennedy with Humanities Team and Evolution Revolution. And today we are reading like 4 or 5 pages into chapter 13 of Conversations with God, Book 3. And Neil is asking he says, all things that proceed from you return to you, which is where we left off last week. And anyway, let us begin. And Linda, thank you for reading.
All right, you're welcome. So I'm going to just read the short paragraph right before that statement of Neil's, where God is speaking, and he says, "Yet in this kind of one-way giving would be your salvation be found, for you would have discovered that what God has experienced, that what you give to another, you give to yourself. What goes around comes around." Neil says, all things that proceed from you return to you sevenfold. So there is no need to worry about what you are going to get back. There is only a need to worry about what you are going to give out. Life is about creating the highest quality giving, not the highest quality getting. You keep forgetting, but life is not for getting. Life is for giving. And in order to do that, you need to be forgiving to others, especially those who do not give you what you thought you were going to get. This switch will entail a complete shift in your cultural story. Today, what you call success in your culture is measured largely by how much you get, by how much honor and money and power and possessions you amass. In the new culture, success will be measured by how much you cause others to amass. The irony will be that the more you cause others to amass, the more you will amass effortlessly. With no contracts, no agreements, no bargaining, no negotiating, or lawsuits or courts which force you to give each other what is promised. In the future economy, you will not do things for personal profit, but for personal growth, which will be your profit. Yet profit, in the material terms, will come to you as you become a bigger and grander version of who you really are. In those days and times, using force to coerce someone to give you something because they said they would will seem very primitive to you. If another person does not keep an agreement, you will simply allow them to walk their path, make their choices, and create their own experience of themselves. And whatever they have not given you, you will not miss, for you will know that there is more where that came from, and that they are not your source of that, but you are. Whoa, I got it. But it feels like we've really gotten off the mark. This whole discussion began with me asking you about love. If human beings would ever allow themselves to express it without limitation. And that led to a question about open marriage. And suddenly we've gotten way off mark here. Well, not really. Everything we've talked about is pertinent. And this is a perfect lead-in to your questions about so-called enlightened or more highly evolved societies. Because in highly evolved societies, there is neither marriage nor business, nor for that matter, any matter of artificial social constructions that you have created to hold your society together. Yes, well, we'll get into that soon. Right now, I want to close down this subject. You've said some intriguing things here. What all of it breaks down to, as I get it, is that most human beings can't keep promises and so shouldn't make them. That pretty much scuttles the institution of marriage. I like your use of the word institution here. Most people experience that when they are in a marriage. They are in an institution. Yeah, it's either a mental health institution or a penal institution, or at the very least, an institution of higher learning. Exactly. Precisely. That's how most people experience it. Well, I was kidding along with you here, but I wouldn't say most people. There are still millions of people who love the institution of marriage and want to protect it. I'll stand by that statement. Most people have a very difficult time with marriage and do not like what it does to them. Your worldwide divorce statistics prove this. So, are you saying that marriage should go? I have no preference in the matter, only, I know, observations. Bravo. You keep wanting to make a god of preferences, which I am not. Thank you for trying to stop that. Well, we've not only scuttled marriage, but we've also just scuttled religion. It is true that religions would not exist if the whole of human race understood that God doesn't have preferences, because a religion purports to be a statement of God's preferences. And if you have no preferences, then religion must be a lie. Well, that's a harsh word. I'd call it a fiction. It's just something you made up. Like we made up the fiction that God prefers us to be married? Yes, I don't prefer anything of the sort, but I notice you do. Why? Why do we prefer marriage if we know that it is so difficult? Because marriage was the only way you could figure out to bring foreverness or eternity into your experience of love. It was the only way a female could guarantee her support and survival, and the only way a male could guarantee the constant availability of sex and companionship. So a social convention was created, a bargain was struck. You give me this, and I'll give you that. In this, it was very much like a business. A contract was made. And since both parties needed to enforce the contract, it was said to be a sacred pact with God, who would punish those who broke it. Later, when that didn't work, you created man-made laws to enforce it. But even that hasn't worked. Neither the so-called laws of God or the laws of man have been able to keep people from breaking their marriage vows. How come? Because these vows, as you have them normally constructed, run counter to the only law that matters, which is natural law. But it is the nature of things for life to express unity, oneness. Isn't that what I'm getting from all of this? And marriage is our most beautiful expression of that. You know, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, and all that. Marriage, as most of you have practiced it, is not particularly beautiful, for it violates two of the three aspects of what is true about each human being by nature. Will you go over that again? I think I'm just starting to pull this together. Okay, once more from the top. Who you are is love. What love is unlimited, eternal, and free. Therefore, that is what you are. That is the nature of who you are. You are unlimited, eternal, and free by nature. Now, any artificial, social, moral, religious, philosophic, economic, or political construction which violates or subordinates your nature is an impingement upon your very self, and you will rail against it. What do you suppose gave birth to your own country? Was it not give me liberty or give me death? Well, you've given up that liberty in your country, and you've given up that liberty in your lives, all for the same thing, security. You are so afraid to live, so afraid of life itself, that you've given up the very nature of your being in trade for security. The institution you call marriage is your attempt to create security, as is the institution called government. Actually, they are both forms of the same thing: artificial social constructions designed to govern each other's behavior. Oh, good grief. I never looked at it like that. I always thought that marriage was the ultimate announcement of love. As you have imagined it, yes, but not as you have constructed it. As you have constructed it, it is the ultimate announcement of fear. If marriage allowed you to be unlimited, eternal, and free in your love, then it would be the ultimate announcement of love. As things are now, you become married in an effort to lower your love to the level of a promise or a guarantee. Marriage is an effort to guarantee what is so now will always be so. If you didn't need this guarantee, you would not need marriage. And how do you use this guarantee? First, as a means of creating security, instead of creating security from that which is inside you. And second, if that security is not forever forthcoming as a means of punishing each other, for the marriage promise which has been broken can now form the basis of the law which has been opened. You have thus found marriage very useful, even if it is for all the wrong reasons. Marriage is also your attempt to guarantee that the feelings you have for each other, you will never have for another, or at least that you will never express them with another in the same way, namely sexually. Finally, marriage as you have constructed it is a way of saying this relationship is special. I hold this relationship above all others. Well, what's that? Nothing. It's right or wrong. Right or wrong do not exist. It's what serves you, of what recreates the next grandest image of who you really are. If who you really are as a being, who is a being who says, this relationship, this single one right over here is the most special than any other, then your construction of marriage allows you to do that perfectly. Yet you might find it interesting to notice that almost no one who is or has been recognized as a spiritual master is married. Yeah, because masters are celibate. They don't have sex. No, it's because masters cannot truthfully make that statement that your present construction of marriage seeks to make, that one person is more special to them than another. This is not a statement that a masters make, and it is not a statement that God makes. The fact is, your marriage vows, as you presently construct them, have you making a very ungodly statement. It is the height of irony that you feel this is the holiest of holy promises, for it is a promise that God would never make. Yet in order to justify your human fears, you have imagined a God who acts just like you. Therefore you speak of God's promise to his chosen people, and of the covenants between God and those God loves in a special way. You cannot stand the thought of a God who loves no one in a way which is more special than any other. And so you create fictions about a God who only loves certain people for certain reasons. And you call these fictions religions. I call them blasphemies. For any thought that God loves one more than another is false. And any ritual which asks you to make the same statement is not a sacrament, but a sacrilege. Oh my God, stop it. You're killing every good thought I ever had about marriage. This can't be God writing. God would never say such things about religion and marriage. Religion and marriage, the way you have constructed them, is what we're talking about here. You think that this talk is tough? I'll tell you. You have bastardized the Word of God in order to justify your fears and rationalize your insane treatment of each other. You will make God say whatever you need God to say in order to continue limiting each other, hurting each other, and killing each other in my name. Yeah, you have invoked my name and waved my flag and carried crosses on your battlefields for centuries, all as proof that I love one people more than another and would ask you to kill to prove it. Yet I tell you this, my love is unlimited and unconditional. That is the one thing you cannot hear, the one truth you cannot abide, the one statement you cannot accept, for its all-inclusiveness destroys not only the institution of marriage as you have constructed it, but every one of your religions and government institutions as well. For you have created a culture based on exclusion and supported it with a cultural myth of a God who excludes. Yet the culture of God is based on inclusion. In God's love, everyone is included. Into God's kingdom, everyone is invited. And this truth is what you call blasphemy. And you must, because if it was true, then everything you've created in your life is false. All human conventions and all human constructions are faulty to the degree that they are not unlimited, eternal, and free. Oh, how can anything be faulty if there's no such thing as right and wrong? A thing is only faulty to the degree that it does not function to suit its purpose. If a door does not open and close, you would not call the door wrong. You would merely say its installation or operation is faulty because it does not serve its purpose. Whatever you construct in your life, your human society, which does not serve your purpose in becoming human, is faulty. It is faulty construction. And just for review, my purpose in becoming human is to decide and declare, to create and express, to experience and to fulfill who you really are, to recreate yourself anew in every moment in the grandest version of the greatest vision ever you had about who you really are. That is your purpose in becoming human, and that is the purpose of all life. So, well, where does that leave us? We've destroyed religion, we've dissed marriage, we've denounced governments. Where are we then? Well, first of all, we've destroyed, dissed, and denounced nothing. If a construction that you have created is not working and not producing what you wanted it to produce, to describe the condition is not to destroy, diss, or denounce the construction. Try to remember the difference between judgment and observation. Well, I'm not going to argue with you here, but a lot of what has just been said has sounded pretty judgmental to me. We are constricted here by the awful limitation of words. There are really only so few of them, and so we have to use the same ones over and over again, even when they don't always convey the same meaning or the same kinds of thoughts. You say that you love banana splits, but you surely don't mean the same thing as when you say you love each other. So you see, we have very few words, really, to describe how you're feeling. In communicating with you in this way, in the way of words, I've allowed myself to experience those limitations. And I will concede that, because some of this language has also been used by you when you were being judgmental. It would be easy to conclude that I'm being judgmental when I use them. Let me assure you here that I am not. Throughout this whole dialogue, I have simply been trying to tell you how to get where you say you want to go, and to describe as impactfully as possible what is blocking your way, what is stopping you from going there. Now, with regard to religion, you say where you want to go is a place where you can truly know God and love God. I am simply observing that your religions do not take you there. Your religions have made God the great mystery and caused you not to love God, but to fear God. Religion has done little as well to cause you to change your behaviors. You're still killing each other, condemning each other, making each other wrong. And in fact, it is your religions which have been encouraging you to do so. So with regard to religion, I merely observe that you say you want it to take you to one place, and it is taking you to another. Now, you say you want marriage to take you to the land of eternal bliss, or at least some reasonable level of peace, security, and happiness. As with religion, your invention called marriage does well with this in the early going, when you are first experiencing it. Yet, as with religion, the longer you reside in the experience, the more it takes you where you say you don't want to go. Nearly half of the people who become married dissolve their marriage through divorce. And of those who stay married, many are desperately unhappy. Your unions of bliss lead you to bitterness, anger, and regret. Some, and not a small number, take you to a place of outright tragedy. You say you want your governments to ensure peace, freedom, and domestic tranquility. And I observe that as you have devised them, they do none of this. Rather, your governments lead you to war, an increasing lack of freedom, domestic violence, and upheaval. You haven't been able to solve the basic problems of simply feeding and keeping people healthy and alive, much less the challenge of providing them equal opportunity. Hundreds of you die every day of starvation on a planet where thousands of you throw away each day enough food to feed nations. You can't handle the simplest task of getting the leftovers from the haves to the have-nots, much less resolve the issue of whether you ever want to share your resources more equitably. Now, these are not judgments. These are things which are observedly true about your society. Why? Why is it like this? Why have we made so little progress in conducting our own affairs in these past many years? Years, try centuries. Okay, centuries. Well, it has to do with the first human cultural myth and with all the other myths which necessarily follow. Until they change, nothing else will change. For your cultural myths inform your ethics, and your ethics create your behaviors. If the problem is your cultural myth is at variance with your basic instinct. What do you mean? Your first cultural myth is that human beings are inherently evil. This is the myth of original sin. The myth holds that not only is your basic nature evil, you were born that way. The second cultural myth, arising necessarily out of the first, is that it is the fittest who survive. This second myth that holds that some of you are strong and some of you are weak, and that to survive you have to be the one of the strong. You will do all that you can to help your fellow man, but if and when it comes down to your own survival, you will take care of yourself first. You will even let others die. Indeed, you will go further than that. If you think you have to, in order for you and others to survive, you will actually kill others presumably the weak, therefore defining yourself as fittest. I just got a cough, hang on. Some of you say that it is your basic instinct. It is called a survival instinct, and that it is this cultural myth that has formed much of your societal ethic, creating many of your group behaviors. Yet your basic instinct is not survival, but rather fairness, oneness, and love. This is the basic instinct of all sentient beings everywhere. It is your cellular memory. It is your inherent nature. Thus is exposed your first cultural myth. You are not basically evil. You were not born in original sin. If your basic instinct was survival, and if your basic instinct, nature, was evil, you would never move instinctively to save a child from falling, a man from drowning, or anyone from anything. And yet, when you act on your basic instincts and display your basic nature and don't think about what you are doing, this is exactly how you behave, even at your own peril. Thus, your basic instinct cannot be survival, and your basic nature is clearly not evil. Your instinct and your nature is to reflect the essence of who you are, which is fairness, oneness, and love. Looking at the societal implications of this, it's important to understand the difference between fairness and equality. It is not a basic instinct of all sentient beings to seek equality or to be equal. Exactly the opposite is true. The basic instinct of all living things is to express uniqueness, not sameness. Creating a society in which two beings are truly equal is not only impossible, but it's undesirable. Societal mechanisms seeking to produce true equality, in other words, economic, political, and social sameness, work against, not for, the grandest idea and the highest purpose, which is that each being will have the opportunity to produce the outcome of its grandest desire and thus truly recreate itself anew. Equality of opportunity is what is required for this, not equality in fact. This is called fairness. Equality in fact, produced by exterior forces and laws, would eliminate, not produce, fairness. It would eliminate the opportunity for true self-recreation, which is the highest goal of enlightened beings everywhere. And what would create freedom of opportunity? Systems that would allow society to meet the basic survival needs of every individual, freeing all beings to pursue self-development and self-creation rather than self-survival. In other words, systems that imitate the true system called life, in which survival is guaranteed. No society created around a myth of inherent evilness or survival of the fittest could possibly achieve such understanding. Yes, I see this. And this cultural myth question is something I want to explore, along with the behaviors and ethics of more advanced civilizations, later in great detail. But I'd like to double back one last time and resolve the questions I started out with here. One of the challenges of talking with you is that your answers lead us in such interesting directions that I sometimes forget where I began. But in this case, I have not. We were discussing marriage. We were discussing love and its requirements. Love has no requirements. That's what makes it love. If your love for another carries requirements, then it's not love at all, but some counterfeit version. That is what I've been trying to tell you here. It is what I've been saying in a dozen ways with different questions you've asked here. Within the context of marriage, for example, there is an exchange of vows that love does not require, yet you require them because you do not know what love is. And so you make each other such a promise that love would never ask. Then you're against marriage. I'm not against anything. I'm simply describing what I see. Now you can change what I see. You can redesign your social construction called marriage so that it does not ask what love would never ask, but rather declares what only love could declare. In other words, change the marriage vows. More than that, change the expectations on which the vows are based. These expectations are going to be very difficult to change because they are your cultural heritage. They arise in turn from your cultural myths. Here we go again with the cultural myths routine. What's up with you about this? I'm hoping to point you in the right direction here. I see you say you want to go with your society, and I'm hoping to find human words and human terms that can direct you there. May I give you an example? Please. One of your cultural myths about love is that it's about giving rather than receiving. This has become a cultural imperative, and yet it's driving you crazy and causing more damage than you could ever imagine. It gets and keeps people in bad marriages. It causes relationships of all kinds to be dysfunctional. Yet no one, not your parents, to whom you look for guidance, not your clergy, to whom you look for inspiration, not your psychologists and psychiatrists, to whom you look for clarity, not even your writers and artists, to whom you look for intellectual leadership, will dare to challenge the prevailing cultural myth. And so songs are written, stories are told, movies are made, guidance is given, prayers are offered, and parenting is done, which perpetuates the myth. And then you are all left to live up to it, and you can't. Yet it is not you that is the problem, it's the myth. Love is not about giving rather than receiving? No. It isn't? No, it never has been. But you said yourself just a moment ago that love has no requirements. You said that's what makes it love. And so it is. Well, that sure sounds like giving rather than receiving to me. Then you need to reread chapter 8 of book 1. Everything I'm alluding to here, I explained to you there. This dialogue was meant to be read in sequence and to be considered as a whole. I know, but for those who nevertheless came to these words now without having read book 1, could you please explain? Please. What are you getting at here? Because frankly, even I could use the review, and I think I understand this stuff. Okay, here goes. Everything you do for yourself. This is true because you and all others are one. So what you do for another, you therefore do for you. What you fail to do for another, you fail to do for you. What is good for another is good for you. And what is bad for another is bad for you. This is the most basic truth, and yet in this truth, you most frequently ignore. Now, when you are in a relationship with another, that relationship has only one purpose. It exists as a vehicle for you to decide and to declare, to create and to express, to experience and to fulfill your highest notion of who you are, who you really are. Now, if who you really are is a person who is kind and considerate, caring and sharing, compassionate, and loving, then when you are being these things with others, you are giving yourself the grandest experience for which you came into the body. This is why you took a body, because only in the physical realm of the relative could you know yourself as these things. In the realm of the absolute from which you have come, this experience of knowing is impossible. All these things I've explained to you in far greater detail in Book 1. Now, if who you really are is being who does not love the self and who allows the self to be abused, damaged, and destroyed by others, then you will continue behaviors which allow you to experience that. Yet if you really are a person who is kind and considerate, caring and sharing, compassionate and loving, you will include yourself among the people with whom you are being these things. Indeed, you will start with yourself. You will put yourself first in these matters. Everything in life depends on what you are seeking to be. For instance, if you are seeking to be one with all others, that is, you are seeking to experience a conceptualization you already know to be true, and you find yourself behaving in a very specific way, a way which allows you to experience and demonstrate your oneness. And when you do certain things as a result of this, you will not experience that you are doing something for someone else, but rather you are doing it for yourself. The same will be true no matter what you are seeking to be. If you are seeking to be love, you will be doing things with others, not for others, but with others. Notice the difference. Catch that nuance. You will be loving things with others for yourself, so that you can actualize and experience your greatest, grandest idea about who yourself and who you really are. In this sense, it is impossible to do anything for another, for every act of your own volition is literally just that, an act. You're acting. That is, creating and playing a role, except that you're not pretending. You're actually being it. You are a human being, and what you are being is decided and chosen by you. Your Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage, and the people the players." He also said, "To be or not to be, that is the question." And he also said, "To thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." When you are true to yourself, when you do not betray yourself, then when it looks like you are giving, you will know you are actually receiving. You are literally giving yourself back to yourself. You cannot truly give to another for the simple reason that there is no other. If we are all one, then there is only you. Oh, this seems something like a seismic trick, semantic trick, a way to change the words around to alter their meaning. It's not a trick, but it is magic. And it is not about changing the words to alter meaning, but changing perceptions to alter experience. Your experience of everything is based on your perceptions, and your perception is based on your understanding, and your understanding is based on your myths. That is on what you have been told. Now I tell you this. Your present cultural myths have not served you. They have not taken you where you say you want to go. Either you are lying to yourself about where you say you want to go, or you are blind to the fact that you are not getting there. Not as an individual, not as a country, not as a species, or as a race. Are there other species which are? Oh, yes, decidedly. Okay, I've waited long enough. Tell me about them. Soon, very soon, but first I want to tell you about how you can alter your invention called marriage so that it takes you closer to where you say you want to go. Not to destroy it, not to do away with it, alter it. Well, yes, well, I do want to know about that. I do want to know whether there is any way that human beings will ever be allowed to express true love. So I end this section of our dialogue where I began it. What limits shall we, indeed, some would say, must we, place on that expression? None. No limits at all. And that is not what your marriage vows should state. It's amazing because that's exactly what my marriage vows with Nancy did state. I know. Well, when Nancy and I decided to get married, I suddenly felt inspired to write a whole new set of marriage vows. I know. And Nancy joined me. She said that we couldn't possibly change the vows that had become traditional at weddings. I know. We sat down, we created new vows that, well, defined the cultural imperative, as you might put it. Yes, you did. I was very proud. And as we were writing them, as we put the vows down on paper for the minister to read, I truly believed we were both inspired. Of course you were. Do you mean, what do you think? I only come to you when you're writing books? Wow. Yes, wow. So why don't you put those marriage vows here? Huh? Go ahead. You've got a copy of them. Put them right here. Well, I didn't create them to share with the world. Oh, when this dialogue began, you didn't think any of this would be shared with the world? Go ahead, put them in. Well, it's just that I don't want people thinking I'm saying we've written the perfect marriage vows. All of a sudden you're worried about what people think? Oh, come on, you know what I mean. Look, no one says these are the perfect marriage vows. Okay. They're just the best everyone on your planet's come up with so far. Hey, just kidding. Lighten up here. Go ahead. Put the vows in. I will take responsibility for them, and people will love them. It'll give them an idea of what we're talking about here. Why you may even want to invite others to take these vows, which are not really vows at all, but marriage statements.
Why don't we stop here?
Okay.
Because the marriage vows are a conversation in and of themselves.
Okay.
And that's like 5 more pages. This is one of those chapters where I don't feel as confused as I have in other chapters, or this part of it anyway. And again, thank you for reading. I wanted to...
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to also say, you know, we're the beginning of where we're reading, it's talking about there is enough, and you know that we're killing ourselves in the name of religion, or killing each other in the names of religion. That it's not about sameness. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here. And one of the things that popped into my head as we were reading this was, you know, it's been a really interesting week around the world. We've had yet another shooting here in the United States, and it was politically motivated as they see it right now. Our president is going to be under investigation, or so it seems. I should say the president. I don't really consider him my president, and I know that's not very one-to-see, but also in the UK.
I'm hearing a lot of background noise.
Okay. But Yeah, there you go, sir. And when you want to talk, we'll deal with the noise. But this high-rise fire that happened in the UK, and last I saw, it was like 60 or plus people who've lost their lives, and it was done out of government carelessness, is what I understand about it thus far.
They put cheap materials on.
Yep. And the tenants had asked for safety precautions, and so, and then we've got Neil talking here about the institution of government, the institution of marriage, the institution of, I can't remember what the third thing it was that he mentioned, but he talks about mental health institutions and penal institutions. And so I don't know why I went off on this thing in my head about all these things that have happened just in the last week. And anyway, I'm just going to open that up for discussion, see what you want to add.
It makes me very sad. I guess we've functioned and tried to call insanity normal for a long time.
Christine, our arms are around you. And I think we all can agree that it's insanity. Sometimes it seems normal because it happens so often.
Well, denial is so strong in the human genome. It's unbelievable, really.
Well, and as we've talked about on several calls, and we've all listened to speakers, we cannot deny ourselves to grieve or feel the pain. It never works. I've told the story before where, I don't know, 20 years ago, in an 18-month period, there was like 8 people that were very good friends or family that died. And for quite a while, the last person that died in that string of things, I couldn't even go there. And I just kept saying, well, I'll deal with this later. I'll deal with this later. I'll deal with this later. And I can remember exactly where I was standing on Colorado State University campus. I was getting ready to eat a peanut butter sandwich, and it was like somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, later is here. And I didn't have a nervous breakdown, but I almost did, because just so many things, I just kept saying, I'll deal with it later. And that's why I think it's important that, Christine, like with you feeling sad and shedding some tears right now, that's important because you're doing that for all of us here.
That's oneness.
I was crying this week too, also with the tower in Kensington in London. And every time I saw it, I just burst into tears. And I think it's good to grieve.
It is. When I first heard about it, I'm sure others thought about this too. It just took me back to the Twin Towers, although I wouldn't consider the London thing a terrorist act, the way that they're not comparable. But I heard that people were jumping out of the building.
Tossing their babies, and a man miraculously caught the baby. Like, it is the same thing. It's deep, deep, deep unconsciousness and feeling separate and apart. It is the same. It's exactly the same. You're going to choose pieces of paper and round metal discs over life. There was a thing on the news in British Columbia this week, and it was horrible to watch the way that this group of people were treating chickens, right? Like, it was a horrible, horrible thing to have to watch. And, yeah, life is sacred, and humanity doesn't treat it that way.
Well, I don't know where it is where we just read it, but God says you were born with love, and we're programmed to be the kind of person that goes and saves a drowning man, or a child that's in trouble. That's our natural instincts. And to see anything cruel happening to other living beings is dreadfully painful to me. And I have not become so ice queen that it doesn't affect me, but it just, I would have to say that I'm kind of in a place myself where I go, not again. No, not this, no more. And hi, is that Anne?
This is Anne, yes. Let me know when it's okay to comment.
Okay, just one sec.
Yeah.
And Sarah, and I'm sure Angela feels the same way because I know she's in the UK. It's heartbreaking to hear stories where so many people have lost their lives, and anyway, Anne, you can come in.
Well, in the last part of the reading, he was talking about that we really do it all for ourselves. And when you said something about the harshness of people, I thought, well, maybe the reflection too is to internalize that. See, I'm like really hard on myself. I'm harder on myself than anybody else probably, So it's like one place I can begin is to see where I'm being harsh on myself. Because if I can't find the mercy in what's happening with me, I'm not going to be able to find the mercy elsewhere. But this is coming up for me for 2 reasons. One, we've been dealing with my elderly mother and my elderly mother-in-law who passed last week. And I'm here in Florida taking care of my mother, and she's 95 years old. And some ways I wish the dementia was greater because she's still got all her marbles and is driving me absolutely crazy. It's like, but she's but she's 95. So in my head, I'm saying, I'm just going to go there. I'm grounded. I got the rose in front of me. I'm not going to get upset. She's not going to push my buttons. I just want to have a good time. This may be the last time. I'm trying to rationalize all that stuff. And I get in there and she starts with what she does. And it's like the next thing we know, it's crazy. I don't want to be arguing with her at this point. So again, what that made me look at is, so where am I not having mercy with myself, and how am I going to break this? So basically what I saw was that sometimes we need to set boundaries. So I just told my mother that I didn't say, if you don't behave yourself, I'm not coming anymore, but I said that this has to stop. As soon as it goes on, we just have to stop it, else I'm not coming anymore. But levels of dementia can be really harsh. You know what I mean? That when people are losing it, they can be really angry and cruel. I'm sure it's a horrible place to be when you still can remember some things, and you see that you see what's happening to you because you haven't gotten all the way there yet where you don't know the difference. So I don't know how that fit into what you were saying, but again, I just thought I'd bring it back to the concept of I really can't change the world, but I can change myself, and in my own actions, then I'm a mirror for somebody else to see how we ought to live.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
And, when you were talking about your mother, I just had to giggle because a few years ago, 2 months before his 97th birthday, Dad passed. And, he had dementia too. And what he said to me is, dear, this is not a game for wussies. And
yeah, old age is not. Yeah, that's an expression. Old age is not for pussies, actually. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, and he knew, he was aware that what was happening to him, and it was very difficult. The only thing I could do to keep him calm was to give him a head rub. And then my mother-in-law would get jealous, but I said, I would happily give you a head rub, but you'd be worried about your hair. Getting your hair messy, whereas Dad didn't care.
Yep.
So.
Well, I think we're not finished discussing this chapter
No, it's
of what we read today.
I like that, the self-compassion and, start with yourself, because Neil says that very clearly over and over and over again. Start with yourself. And, we've been programmed to believe that starting with ourselves is selfish.
That's why I'm writing a book about it.
Thank you, Linda.
I had one other thing that's sticking here with me, so I'm going to share it because it doesn't really, well, whatever. When they say know yourself, over the Temple of Delphi, there's two things, and the first thing it says is know yourself, but the second saying is nothing in excess. And I don't know why, but somehow that applies somewhere in here. It just hit a button with me, because it's like, that's where all my trouble comes from, is I always seem to want to exceed the limit, or something about less is more. I don't know. So I'm done. That was all I had to add, was that was the other saying next to know thyself. Was
Yep.
nothing in excess.
I think, too, one of the things that Sarah put in the window here, that the love and support in this group is very special, and I couldn't agree with you more. And, though we may not be a huge group, I think I feel as close to you, to all of you, as if you live next door to me. And I'm not always good about getting back through emails and this, that, and the other thing, but I look forward to this, and this is my church, not Nanette's, but I enjoy this a great deal, where we can all be talking and we can dare to go naked with each other. Nobody's afraid to say what they want to say, and that's a good thing.
Good to be naked and unashamed. Absolutely.
Yep. So next week, I do want to go ahead and we'll do some more. What were you saying, Linda? You're writing another book?
Well, I'm just, it's multiple volumes, and that's what it's going to take, because it basically, we have to get back to this idea like what he's talking about here. There's only all of us as one. So whatever I'm doing it to everybody else, whether I'm conscious of it or not. And that's what we're all doing. And it's about, this whole century that we're in now is about breaking down these institutions that he's talking about in this chapter. And we're in that process right now. We're living through it. This is like the most amazing experience of anyone's lifetime ever, I think, is to be on planet Earth right now, because we're watching the decay of these institutions happening. And we're going to get through this, and we are the people in this circle, and the other people that, you know, Neil talks with, and other people in these larger circles. We are the ones that are going to walk this knowledge out into society. And it's just thrilling. It's also extremely painful, like Christine was saying. Those things that we are seeing, these decays in especially in our government, where people are dying as a result of people who were in government and were selfish and chose to do things that served themselves and didn't serve the greater whole. All of those things are starting to collapse, and we're the people who are going to put this puzzle together out of the pieces that are left.
I agree. And one of the things what you just said, Lyndon, and I'll let us all go. Steve Farrell, who's the worldwide executive director of Humanities Team. I pick up the mail for Humanities Team at a post office box here in the town where I live. And I don't know if you can see this at all. Let's see. It's an elderly person's handwriting. And I'm going to read this. It's fairly short. Dearest Steve, and then this woman has made a heart and colored it pink. I so admire you for what you've co-created with the divine. You continue to inspire me. And this is where it's getting where what Linda said made me think of this. I am 87 and continue to co-create my life. On the front, which you won't be able to see, is a picture of her. She is a little old lady. She was, I was laughing my ass off as my friend tried on the hat I had knitted for her to wear at the Pink Pussy Parade in Santa Cruz. I'm playing something I can't read. I mean, I can't, the handwriting's messed up. It says, last Monday, God told me to write my story. And he told me I was from Venus. And another word I can't decipher. Here to... Oh, that she is here to raise the planet's energy. And then she goes on to tell about her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and love this. But what I loved about it, when you said we're the ones that are going out there, we've got an 87-year-old woman here who went out on the World Women's March thing that happened everywhere. And, I mean, she's talking about pink pussy hats. And I just thought, you know, we need to remember that we've all got that tender spot. And the funny thing is, I haven't given this note to Steve because I'm not sure, Steve, what he would make of this. But I would have to type it so he could read what is legible. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you and remind us all that, you know, we're all doing our parts, you know, as best as we can. And as Anne said, we can't beat I think it was Anne. We can't be so hard on ourselves, because I know I'm harder on me than anybody else. So
yeah, we've been programmed to, you know, from a very early age to be hard on ourselves.
Yep. So Angela and Sarah and Shabana and Linda and Anne and Christine, I just want you all to know how much this group means to me, and I love you all. And we'll do it again next week. And Shabana, I promise I'll try to get... Yay.
Love you, too.
Thank you. And I will promise to try to get this tape up as soon as possible. Or the recording.
Thanks, Nanette.
All right.
See everybody next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Love you, Nanette. Bye-bye.
Love you too.
Love everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.